Well, Professor Mojisola Adeye joins us now, the Director General of NAFDAC. Good morning, Prof, and thank you for joining us today on the program. Well, yes, lots of expectations and trying to find out, having approved it. So if you could start by telling us, what kind of considerations went in, and when you say for emergency use, what does that translate practically into?
Thank you so much for having me. Emergency use authorization is a temporary approval pending submission of other data that we then lend it to full licensure. Emergency use authorization is usually given during a pandemic or a crisis, but it is, I mentioned that pending gathering more data. Yes, even for the emergency use authorization, enough data must be present in the dossier. The dossier is the application package that has everything from the beginning of the research to the end of phase 3 clinical trials. It's a long process usually, but for the COVID vaccine took about a year. So we give this emergency use authorization using two mechanisms. One is reliance. We wait for stringent regulatory countries to approve the particular drug or vaccine in this case, and there's a lot that will have gone into that. A lot of scrutiny based on scientific evidences and so on. If such countries approve the vaccine, in this case the vaccine, then we look at their report, meaning NAFDAC. We look at their report, digest every line of the report to make sure that whenever we get our own dossier, the same dossier that was sent to them, whenever we get our own dossier, we will have understood some of the peculiarities that may be unique for that product. That was exactly what we did for COVID vaccine. For AstraZeneca, it was approved by UK Medicine Agency, and we had access to their report. This was maybe a month or 6 weeks ago. We were looking at the report pending when we will get our own dossier.
Madam,
and of course, our staff are also being trained because of COVID vaccine, because it's a unique particular product.
Well, clearly
so, sorry, please.
My apologies. Clearly, from all that you have said, it would seem like not all medical experts agree. And I'm sure you are aware of some of the concerns that some of the medical practitioners have raised along this particular line, questioning the processes through which we had to go through before we were able to bring this to bear. Part of the concern probably would be, from what you have said, that there are other countries who have approved this, and consequently we wait for them to do the needful before we now approve. But then, you have also said this, that we have a different genetic construct from some of these other countries, consequently, for which reason it would seem like we're not having it as bad as many of these countries that you reference. So then the question of why the emergency, and for how long is this emergency going to last?
Thank you very much. You brought up a good point. There was a lot of struggles before we were able to get this first dossier. And at the beginning, people started wondering, why do you need the dossier? And I just wondered, why do we need the dossier? So we will get something, we will get a vaccine into our country, and we will not know anything about it. And that underscores your point. most of the clinical trials that are being done on these vaccines were done using Caucasian population. And because of genetic differences, even the same siblings, siblings of the same parents, have differences in the way they handle medicines. So I said, we cannot get vaccine into Nigeria without the dossier. No COVID vaccine without NAFDAC looking at the dossier and reviewing it. That is why we are using active pharmacovigilance for any vaccine that is going to be approved by NAFDAC. What is active pharmacovigilance? When somebody gets the shot or the vaccination, we start monitoring that individual for about a year, just to be sure that first there are no side effects or adverse drug reactions, and if there are, what are they? Are they different from the ones that they observed in Caucasian population? That is the richness of research. The fact that they have not done it in our own climate, with our own people, we can say it's okay. But what of when it gets here? We have to monitor the individuals. And we're going to be using what is called Med Safety App. It was launched late last year by the Honorable Minister, actually. So it is a Med Safety, it's an app that anybody can download that is very literate, but it is meant for healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, and pharmacists and so on. So that when a person gets this shot, this vaccination, there is a means to record what is happening. Oh, I got vaccinated today, my arm is sore, I have fever, I'm tired. The individual can enter that, the side effects or the observed side effect into the app. And we will collate the reports in NAFDAC. And it's not just that, it's going to be translated to a huge database in Uppsala, Sweden. But more importantly is that we are trying also to make sure that we study the differences, because this is going to be used by different countries in Africa, and Nigeria is one of them. We're going to check the differences even among ourselves, and then check the differences between us and other countries. So we are putting safeguards in place, and we are doing this in collaboration with primary health, with NCDC. It is not what one agency can do. Thank you.
Yes. But for what you have said, it will sound like we are yet to have any trial on any Nigerian. Has that been done? If not, what's the plan to do that so that as you have also said, we can be sure that it is good for us in our climate?
Yes, that's also a very good question. We're going to vaccinate millions and millions of Nigerians. Primary health is going to vaccinate millions and millions of Nigerians. We're just going to be observing the pharmacovigilance. But your question is, how do we now condense or crystallize a group of people that we're going to do clinical trials on? There will be sentinel sites, 12 sentinel sites in the country, 2 per geographical zone. It is at that sentinel sites that more observation will be done, a more rigorous observation will be done, and better designed approach to how many patients, what are the ages of these patients, and so on. So to answer your question, this concerted observations will be done at the sentinel sites, at not all sentinel sites, at selected sentinel sites.
Well, we understand that, some of the reports we came across indicated that NAFDAC must have gone through the dossier of the vaccine development processes. I think the clinical trials, phase 1 and 2, So from all that you've seen, is this vaccine going to be effective for all the lineages of the virus in Nigeria?
For AstraZeneca, it has been reported that the variants from UK will not impact the efficacy of AstraZeneca vaccine. The variants from South Africa affected the effectiveness or the efficacy. So that is the confidence that we have for the AstraZeneca vaccine. But there will be studies going on by NIMA, NCDC, the Genomic Center in Ede, to continue to sequence the virus to ensure that these variants from from South Africa have not cropped into our own climate. So to answer your question, I believe that the AstraZeneca vaccine will work or will not be impacted rather by the variants.
Because some scientists in UK, in fact, did also say that the B1525 strain of the virus that was found in Nigeria in December, which has now been found in the UK, they raised concerns that the AstraZeneca vaccine may not be as effective. It may be blunt concerning this vaccine. Have we examined those concerns that they've raised?
Actually, that is a very good question. Until you start giving the vaccines to people and monitoring them, you will not be able to get an answer to that question. Meaning, until we start giving the vaccine in our own country and monitoring them, we will not be able to answer it. So it's part of this pharmacovigilance that we are talking about.
Perhaps that also raises another question, madam, which is, from what you have said, and every scientist known so far have said, coronavirus is very new. So at every point, we seem to be learning by the day. So we have just talked about one variant, there's another variant, B117, and a good number of other variants here and there. And who knows what other mutation is going to occur tomorrow. So how does this particular vaccine address this and future possible mutations of coronavirus disease?
We can only go with, and that is the richness of science. You can only go with the evidence that you have at hand and then start investigating. It is a new virus. The vaccines are very, very new. A lot is being learned every day. NAFDAC went through so many meetings, workshop since April last year, just to be able to, first of all, know the nature of the disease, and even the nature of the disease is still unfolding. So it is good for us as Nigerians to be part of this study, because we don't know what is going to be the next pandemic. And we cannot now say we will never have pandemic. People have been saying that it's going to be almost every 10 years or whatever. So we have to, and that is even the more reason why we have to develop our own vaccine, local vaccine manufacturing in Nigeria, so that we will have done so many trials before we approve, or before the vaccine is manufactured, and then it is approved, hopefully. So we have to join the global world in terms of research. We have to pump money into research, because as we can see now, coronavirus has taken over the world. There is no country that is exempt, whether it is local manufacturing of vaccines or local manufacturing of our own regular products. We've got to put money into it. Without that, we are not secure at all. no drugs, no drug security, no health security if we don't put attention to local manufacturing, whether it's vaccine or normal therapeutics.
Well, that raises some, because I mean, in that same piece, they did say that that Nigerian strain carries the E48K mutation, which spike protein, which is similar to what they found in South Africa. And they said that that spike, it believes it helps coronavirus dodge immunity and antibodies. Are we limited in terms of the independent work that we'll carry out here, comparing, for instance, what we've seen in South Africa and Nigeria? What are you going to be looking out for, having seen that these challenges existed in the variant in South Africa, so that we can avoid some of those pitfalls here?
Yes, that is one thing that I think of every time. But you know, we have capability in Nigeria. NIMA, NCDC, the Genomic Center in Ede, they have capability to sequence the virus and know what is going on. It was NCDC DG that told me last week that the variant, that was last week, that the variants that have been found in Nigeria are similar to those of UK. If now we have found something new that is similar to South Africa, we will take care of it. We shouldn't be afraid of science. The most important thing is to make sure that our people are protected, their health is not compromised at all.
Well, Madam, I just want a little bit more clarity on what you said about trials in Nigeria, so that there is no ambiguity about it. How soon are these trials going to take place, and how effective? What are your hopes about its effects and all of that on us as a people?
Yes, I've discussed with experts in virology, vaccinology, and the type of trials we are talking about is not the usual 150,000, 100,000 people. This would be an abridged trial, just to find out, with smaller population, just to find out whether something is impacting the efficacy of what we have right now. So in terms of whether it is possible, I was talking with a professor from Osman Danfodio University last week, and they are already thinking of it. That university and IRUA are developing vaccine for Lassa fever. We have the capability to do it, but in terms of clinical trials, I believe we're going to all get on a steep curve quickly now that the vaccines are coming in, to know that we can do it. To do clinical trials, if it is well focused, it's not a big problem. It is because it's not like you're going to house them. You're not going to house them, but you have to have a strong team to monitor them, because you're going to give it to them and then they go to their homes. Since they are not incapacitated, it is monitoring, and that is part of what these selected sentinel sites will do.
In other words, this plan is in place.
The plan is not in place as we speak, meaning there is no building set up to do it. But when you have health centers, we have health centers. That is where these people will be coming in. So let's say that you have in Ibadan, a particular health center, and that health center has been chosen as a sentinel site. The patients will come in. It is all about protocol design, clinical trial protocol design. Okay, we're going to look at 300 patients or people rather at this site. And we're going to vary their ages so that we are not biased to one age. And this is what we're going to be doing for the next 6 months or for the next 2 months or whatever, maybe to start with that. So it is a matter of sitting down and focusing. And my colleagues are thinking seriously about that now as we speak, all over the country. I'm talking of the scientists.
Well, it's interesting how you say that we're just thinking about it, because some people will say that shouldn't have been one of the first things that we did before the vaccines were approved for use in Nigeria. We had seen earlier that some of the dailies had reported that we couldn't afford clinical trials. There are huge questions as to how then did we say that this was okay for our population?
Actually, most countries that have received the vaccines, one vaccine or the other, are not even going through clinical trials as we speak. I was at a workshop last week, and it's still being discussed because nobody knew, well, people didn't know about the variants, whether it will impact it or not. So most countries are learning as they go along, and Nigeria is not an exception. But like I mentioned, talks are taking place right now in terms of how many patients are we going to use for an abridged clinical trial. I've gone through clinical trials, from some of my own products before joining NAFDAC. We are the ones that will approve the clinical trial protocol, and NREC, National Research Ethics Committee, that is domiciled at the Ministry of Health. It is not going to take that much. We are talking about it right now.
I've been discussing with what we're saying is that this is okay. I don't know if you can hear me. The vaccines are okay, approved for use in Nigeria. We can go ahead and administer them on citizens. However, we will still be doing clinical trials for them. Is that what you're saying? And if that's what you're saying, how does this help in a situation where we have vaccine skeptics?
Okay, when you are going through, when a product is going through development, you have preclinical stage, then you have the clinical stage. For the clinical stage, you have phases 1, 2, and 3. All these vaccines have gone through phases 1, 2, and 3. At phase 3, most of the vaccines had 20,000, 40,000 people already that were vaccinated and observed for a specific time. So the clinical trials have been done on these vaccines. What we are talking about now is post-marketing, what we call phase 4 trial. Everything has been done, the data has been collected on each of the vaccines that was approved. But you have post-marketing surveillance or pharmacovigilance, where you now start collecting more data. So for anybody watching, clinical trials have been done on these vaccines. We are just, because it was not done in our own climb, within our population, we are taking it more seriously to do post-marketing surveillance, which is active pharmacovigilance in this case. So I hope that I'm clearer in my explanation that all these vaccines went through phase 4. In fact, we have those there. Sorry.
Could you, in addition to the points you were making or still going to make, could you just also speak to, now that you said, yes, you're taking those clinical trials very seriously here, because the first trials, all phases were not done with, people back home here and our kind of people. But what measures are in place in the event that the kind of outcome you get is clearly maybe not what was expected? Do we have plans to handle that?
Actually, yes. Let me quickly make things clearer. When I say that for the clinical trials phases 1, 2, 3 that are taking place, for all these approved vaccines, that it is in Caucasian population. I was talking generally. For Pfizer-BioNTech, for example, about 10% of the population of the people that were used in that clinical trial were African Americans. So it's not like there is no black person, or African American person, or African person rather. So it is about relative number of people. But going back to what I was trying to say before, we have received 3 full doses and 1 yet to be received. Actually 4 full doses, 1 yet to be received. One of those 3 presented in their dossier convincing evidence for us that it worked at phases 1 and 2. But we told them point blank that we cannot move on until you do phase 3 or you complete phase 3. So NAFDAC is not approving dossier for emergency use just like that. No. It doesn't matter how great the results are in phases 1 and 2. In phase 3, that involves thousands, we need the data. The 3rd one that we also approved, they've done even 22,000 people in phase 3, but we still had a lot of issues which we raised, the vaccine committee raised, and sent to them. We're expecting their results. So what I would like to tell the watching audience is that NAFDAC will not approve anything that is going to hurt our people. We take, it's premium to us. And the phase 4, or the pharmacovigilance post-marketing surveillance that we are talking about, is supposed to be done for all drugs, whether vaccines or normal therapeutics, meaning a new drug that is coming to the market. Because during the phase 3, we are talking of thousands. What of when millions are using it? Will you still have similar side effects, adverse drug reactions? It is a continuation of watching the effect, if I want to use the word loosely, watching the effect of the drug on the masses. And when you talk of drugs or vaccines, it is all about risk-benefit ratio. There is no drug that we approve that has been manufactured that doesn't have side effects. No vaccine that doesn't have side effects. It is now what are the benefits compared to the risks. That is basic in all research or drug development research. So the assurance that I'm giving to the watching audience is many billions have taken this AstraZeneca vaccine. The post-marketing surveillance is in place. Primary health, NAFDAC, 40 people from NAFDAC, 80 from primary health were retrained in active pharmacovigilance. So we were already getting prepared for this. And we are actually, what will I call it, on guard, so to say, in terms of what to do. So that is the assurance that I'm going to give to the watching audience.
Well, I do hope that whoever is watching this morning will feel the reassurance that you are passing across. But what do you say to those who say that we are paying undue attention to vaccine development, when ideally what we should be paying attention to is our healthcare system in general? They say the amount of money which you're going to sink into vaccines could be, yes, it is needed, but we might achieve a lot more for our healthcare systems if we're going to sink at least half that amount of money into developing our healthcare system. What would you say to them?
That thought is so well placed, is very well placed. But, you know, we never knew we were going to get a second wave. We all losing our guards around November, October last year, and then we started the second wave. We never knew what is going to, nobody knows what is going to happen. Thank God that Ebola was contained quickly. Millions of Nigeria will have died. That is why it is good to also focus on, or to pay attention on vaccine research and development. However, just like you said, we need to pay attention to health sector in general. We need to pay attention to research and development in our universities, in our research institutes. We need to pay attention to local manufacturing. We are too dependent on foreign goods. And sometimes I don't know what is the problem. Unless it is made overseas, we don't even want to use it. That is part of what NAFDAC is doing now to make sure that the pharmaceutical industry is so strong. I grew up with a strong pharmaceutical industry where expatriates will be going back to their country and they will buy medicines from Nigeria. That is what we are working on right now in NAFDAC, because when NAFDAC is strong, the pharmaceutical industry is strong. When the pharmaceutical industry is strong, we have drug security. And the whole country becomes healthier. So the thought about local content, extremely important. The government is paying attention now to helping the pharmaceutical industry with very low interest rates to rebuild their infrastructure. CBN has the Health Sector Research and Development Intervention Scheme to encourage R&D, translational R&D that will lead to product. So we started, I won't say too late, we started late, but we have to move on. And the government is supporting it. Thank God for COVID. So the thoughts of whoever is thinking that are well placed, but we are laying emphasis. The government now is trying to partner with other countries to develop our R&D or to move it further in vaccine technology, just like they are paying attention to the local manufacturers. As we speak, foreign companies are now partnering with local pharmaceutical manufacturers in Nigeria because we have strengthened it. We have made it more stringent in terms of who is low risk or what company is low risk or high risk. And the one that is high risk, we give them compliance directives. If you meet up 1, 2, 3, 4 address compliance directives that we gave you, you can move to medium risk. So now the world is looking at our pharmaceutical industry to partner with them, because you don't want to partner with the high risk companies. But once they know that you're set up as somebody in charge of a company, your setup is comparable to ones that they know overseas, why not? They will partner with us. So we are moving ahead, and I believe that the will from the government will keep pushing it ahead. Thank you.
And as we wind down, are we doing anything with Johnson & Johnson?
Yes, we are doing something with Johnson & Johnson. We are looking at okay. That is because there are two paths to getting vaccines. You can get vaccines from the COVAX facility, which is the one that will be donated to take care of 20% of the population. And Nigeria is also looking to sourcing their own vaccines because it's not, 20% is not enough. So we are looking at that, and we are expecting the dossier from Johnson & Johnson, and after which, we'll make our pronouncement, but we don't have the dossier yet.
Just a quick one. You have said this over and over again, the potential of phytomedicine in Nigeria. The Vice President has said it. You said it when this news broke, that our low-hanging fruit was herbal medicine. How far so far with that one, with all the research and the committee that you put together? How far so far? When are we going to get the first phytomedicine that can go the whole 9 yards in Nigeria?
You have come to my own soft spot. It is a soft spot for me because I grew up with herbal medicines, with parents that are not fully literate. In terms of what is going on right now, we have a setup. Okay, we have a setup of researchers and herbal medicine practitioners forming pairs. Without forming pairs, we cannot move our herbal medicine research forward, because the practitioners know more than the researcher in terms of what works. But the practitioner don't know how much, when. They just know that it works. That was how I was brought up. So we are now pairing them together, and part of the research and development intervention scheme has these pairs that have submitted applications. Not just listing. It is good to list with NAFDAC, so that, you know, at least that product that was being used as a book before, without measures and whatnot, can now be used and sold, having determined in the lab that it is safe to use. But what is the efficacy? That is what clinical trial is going to bring, and that is part of what is going to be done through this pairing of researchers and practitioners for this particular intervention scheme. But we need to encourage that. You know, research is very costly. And when God has surrounded us with so much biodiversity, what else can we ask? Sometimes I think we are a Garden of Eden with natural products, but we have to do research on it. I will not be surprised whether maybe in about 18 months, somebody will come up with a product that is antiviral. It is not just immune boosters. Immune boosters is fine, but it is antiviral, and it will help with COVID-19. But we are already working that out, and NAFDAC is taking it so seriously. I gave a directive that all herbal medicines in our pipeline, applications rather, in our pipeline must be reviewed expeditiously, with expedited process, so that our part will be done. And then when they want to go to clinical trial part, we will also expedite the clinical trial protocol review. This is because we need it so much in Nigeria. We have so much, unbelievably, so that we just cannot allow that to waste. So that will be my own contribution or comment about medicine and forward.
We'll certainly look forward to when all of that will come to fruition, but we do thank you for talking to us this morning, Professor Mojisola Adeye, Director General of NAFDAC.
Thank you so much. Always good to be here. Thank you.